Hi, I'm Dr. Ron Peek. I'm a chiropractor in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Today I want to talk to you about a condition known as a spinal subluxation. Subluxations are extremely common, they're very much misunderstood, and they have a detrimental effect on your health. And I can honestly say that I believe everyone watching this is being affected by subluxations, or certainly at least the people you know and love the most. So first let's talk about what a subluxation is. If you remember from our last video, we talked about the nerve system and the 24 movable segments of the spine that protect the nerves, protect the spinal cord and the spinal nerves from damage. These are movable segments. So let's look at this more closely and realize that in these two segments, the spinal cord traveling from the brain is surrounded by bone, just like the center of a donut, although it's off-center. And the spinal nerve has to pass through an opening that's formed through two movable bones. And that's a vulnerable area. That's the only place in your body where nerve tissue has to pass through movable bone. And remember, the nerve system controls and coordinates the activity, the function of everything. So if these segments do not align properly, we can create a problem where we're going to cause a pressure on that nerve. That's a subluxation. If we have two notches in the bones and they line properly, they form an opening. When the bones don't line up, the notches don't line up, we have a closure on that opening, and that forms a compression on the nerve, which essentially is a subluxation. So a subluxation basically is a spinal bone that either is not moving freely or is not lined up properly, that's causing an interference or pressure on the involved nerves. That's a subluxation in essence. It's really easy to understand. So what can cause a subluxation? What can cause segments to move out of alignment in the spine? In a word, stress. Now, there are three kinds of stresses that most of us deal with. And incidentally, if you're sitting there right now saying, well, I don't have any stress, my recommendation is check your pulse, because that means you're not alive. Everybody that's living has stresses. There are three main types of stresses. There's physical stresses, chemical stresses, and emotional stresses. What would be a physical stress? Physical stress really for us in this world now is looking into a computer for 8 hours a day, or looking down at your belly button while you're texting on your phone or playing with your games on your telephone. There are falls and smashes and bashes that we take athletically. There are so many different physical traumas that can cause subluxations. That gives you a brief idea. How about chemical stresses? What chemical stresses are you subjected to? Well, there's toxins in the air, there's pollutants, there's pollen, there's preservatives, there's additives, there's all kinds of things that we're ingesting continually. And emotional stresses, that's probably the most common one, literally, is we have stresses that are work-related, financial stresses, relationship stresses, the world's condition nowadays, etc. So all those different stresses are working on us continually. And how do they cause a subluxation? You need to use your imagination. Pretend I have a triangle here. If I have a triangle and at one part of the triangle is a bone, and then there's a nerve, and then there's a muscle, just realize that different stresses can create a cycle of subluxation, we'll call it. So for example, a physical stress may knock the bone out of alignment. Boom. That bone will press on the nerve, that nerve will tighten up the muscle, and that muscle will pull on the bone some more and pull it even more out of alignment. That's a cycle. Emotionally, what can happen? Well, emotions tense us up. So emotions can tighten up a muscle, that can pull the bone out of alignment, that can irritate the nerve, and again the cycle continues. And chemically the same way. The chemicals we ingest that are toxic to us usually can affect either a muscle or a nerve, and either one starts that cycle again. So once we start a subluxation cycle in someone, realize the cycle continues, it goes on, and what happens is your resistance diminishes more and more, so that over a period of time, it takes less and less outside stress to create another subluxation cycle. So subluxations are disrupting of nerve function and affecting your health. So now we know what a subluxation is, we know what causes it. So what does a subluxation do to you, and how does it affect the nerve? The best thing to do is to go back to 1965, before most of you were born, and point out a study that was done at the University of Colorado by Dr. Chung-Ha Soo, who is a very well-respected spinal biomechanical engineer. And Dr. Soo found that a pressure applied to the root of the nerve, this is the root of the nerve, right where it comes out, a pressure applied to the root of the nerve reduced nerve transmission by 60% within 5 minutes. That's a lot. Now I want you to think about that for just a minute. How would you like any muscle or any organ or any gland in your body to be receiving only 40% of its nerve energy? By definition, it's not functioning properly, and by definition, it is sick, literally. So realize that subluxation reduces nerve flow extensively and has a major effect on your health. But the one last point I want to make about that is that Dr. Su found it only took 40 millimeters of pressure applied to that nerve to create that problem. Now, how much is 40 millimeters of pressure? That's about the equivalent of a dime resting on the back of your hand. So just realize it takes very little pressure applied to a spinal nerve at the root to reduce nerve flow extensively by 60% within 5 minutes. And the longer that pressure is applied to the nerve, the more damage and the longer lasting that damage is. It can even become permanent in the long run. So another quick point about this. All vertebrae are subjected to stresses, humans and animals. And animals subluxate also. But I want you to notice and think about something. Do you ever notice how dogs and cats stretch all the time, do all that kind of stuff? They're trying to self-correct their subluxations. That's an innate and intuitive thing. Human beings kind of forgot how to do that. Although we do self-correct subluxations by accident, most of the time because we're not as active as we used to be and because the stresses are so much more than they really were designed to be, our subluxations are more long-lasting than those in animals and more harmful to us. So what do chiropractors do? My whole job as a chiropractor is to locate and correct the subluxations in your spine and in the spine of everyone you know and care about, because they're walking around with subluxations too. It's diminishing their health. Even though it may not be showing at this minute, it's going to catch up to them sometime. And so subluxations need to be corrected as soon as possible. And the last point, I think, is this. Realize the subluxation isn't like flicking off and on a light switch. The longer a subluxation has been present, the more the muscles have adapted to it, and the more instilled it is in that tissue. So it takes repetitious effort over a period of time to properly correct subluxations. And that's how chiropractors work. We need to retrain the body in order to function more normally. So hopefully we've talked about what a subluxation is, how you get them, what it does, and what chiropractors do. Appreciate that very much. Thank you.